Hi, good morning. It's Jim from maverickstar Observatory. Welcome, every one of you. Over the next couple of days, I wanted to do a series of just a few special videos touching on a few subjects, which is relevant, but not directly. But nevertheless, I know you're going to enjoy these videos because the two main subjects over the next coming days that we're going to touch on is the evolution and discovery of Homo sapiens, which is what we are today, and then tomorrow I wanted to do a video on 0-point energy and how close we are to that, and what is our best understanding of how to get to 0 point from now, for as many years in the future until we do finally discover it. And the reason why I say that is because over the last 20 years I have looked at so many ideas that suggest that they have achieved it and recreated it and never been successful. I have had some things that have made me think, well, is that close as we can get it? And I've taken sometimes a different scientific approach to trying to achieve that, but I think it'll be a good video to just go over that and show you some of the things that I've actually built here at the observatory over the last 20 years investigating that. But I wanted to start with one of the questions that comes up a lot in our comment section, and that is about the argument, how old are actual human beings? Well, if you ask any scientist about some of these difficult questions, his best answer can only be, we don't know. I know that that is a bit of a shock, but we can honestly say we don't know a lot about things. We know a lot about a lot of things, and we've got the reason why we know that is because when we reproduce the experiments we get the same results, so it must be correct. So we can say we know like a lot about chemistry because when we recreate the chemistry experiment we get the same results. So by mixing two atoms of oxygen or carbon or whatever, we get the chemical molecule out of it, and if we repeat it it's the same every time. But we don't know a lot of things. I mean, we talk a lot on this channel about the magnetic reversal, but scientists all over the world today have never recreated a magneto, which is suggested to create the magnetosphere and our dipoles that we have today, which we now witness migrating. We just don't simply know, and because we can't recreate it and get the same effects, then how can we say that that is exactly what it is? Another experiment which was done in the last few decades at CERN over in Europe was to try and recreate the effects of cosmic rays in a cloud chamber to try to get the nuclei to form to cause water vapour. They found that they couldn't do it. But the problem is there wasn't recreating the atmospheric gases that are in our atmosphere in that chamber. They only used a couple of them. So it's not surprising that when you don't put all the correct ingredients and scenarios and situations in, you're not going to get the same answers out. So even what we talk about a lot on this channel about cosmic rays forming, we simply cannot say we know for fact. It is like a theory and best guess until it is otherwise proven. That is the basis of science in general, and we try to do our best to get the best results out. So that's what I was thinking of doing. I hope you'll enjoy it, and the reason why I wanted to do that is to try and encourage a few more people to support our observatory, because we always try to come from an honest angle at our observatory. We want to give you the information, and when we're asked really complex questions, we want to give you the most honest answer. The honest answer is, it is very commonly accepted that Homo sapiens have only been on the planet for 45,000 years, yet our ancestors, like the apes and the gibbons that we have, according to Darwin, evolved from. Well, our ancestors were supposedly on this planet between 8 and 4 million years ago, but it is on that I want to just say, well, there could be explanations to say that we was here a lot longer. And what you've got to imagine is, you know, we go through, like we've been talking on this channel, nearly every 100,000 years through the Milankovitch cycle, glacial periods and interglacial periods. Could you imagine if we was here over 100,000 years ago, and if we was technologically advanced like we are today, how, you know, going through such a period of time of sub-zero temperatures would have reduced drastically, first of all, the numbers of the humans that was on there if we was there still in Homo sapien form. Could you imagine also what would have happened to their fine technologies, and then eventually how they would have lost them? I just want to give you a thought experiment here. Could you imagine your smartphone being through out into the elements? Let's say a forest. First of all, how long do you think that the microscopic circuitry in there would hold up, and how long that device would be workable? Let's say in a year. It probably would have failed by then. Even the best sealed, you know, iPhones of today wouldn't survive the elements for a year. Constant rain, constant temperature changing, you know, being saturated in water. You know, eventually that phone would deteriorate to the point where the circuitry breaks down, corrodes and decays, and even the glass on the screen, the tempered glass, would be worn away by erosion. Some of the hardest materials on our planet even fails to stand up to one of the most common substances found on our planet, which is water. And water erodes some of the most strongest materials on our planet, to mention one, diorite, one of the hardest rocks on our planet. Water can erode that. So, you know, I'll put it to you that after 50,000 years, that mobile phone probably wouldn't even be recognisable ever again from that point on. Maybe it is yet to be found by some extreme chances of fortune, an ancient mobile phone encapsulated in amber. But we haven't found that yet, have we? But that could be one of the reasons that would, you know, fossilise that mobile phone that was probably being used 100,000 years ago, and, you know, something that our archaeologists could find today and then say, oh my god, this dates back, this amber first of all dates back nearly 200,000 years, and then, oh my god, they had technology which would change everything we know today about how we evolved and how long we've been human beings. But I've got something to show you. It's a little bit of a twist to the story, and I think you're going to like this. So you're probably wondering why we're looking at a couple of fossils of trilobites, which finally, as you can see, disappeared in the mass extinction at the end of the Permian about 250 million years ago. Well, I'm going to show you in the next photo why we are going to be looking at these. But just before I do, I want you to remember that in the previous image we was looking at was the human descending line where we finally become Homo sapiens. At the beginning of that line was between 4 and 8 million years ago. So 250 million years ago is a considerably lot longer time before then, isn't it? And here's the reason why I'm showing you this. And here, what we're looking at is two footprints of what appears to be human feet. I'll say this, not only do they appear to be human feet, but the way they've been impressed in the sedimentary mud at the time would, to me, indicate that this is not just a human footprint. This is a human footprint that seems to be wearing or garnished with some footwear. But the interesting thing about this is that at the time this human being was standing possibly in some form of footwear, it had crushed 2 or 3 trilobites. I'm just going to indicate where they are for you right now. But in order for it to crush 2 or 3 trilobites, these footprints must date back at least 250 million years ago. What I've done here on this image is I've just overlaid a few circles to highlight where those crushed trilobites exactly are. And it is a mystery, isn't it, how this could even be found. This is over 250 million years ago. We know that because trilobites were made extinct at that point in time. Yet there is a set of footprints, positive and negative, or left and right feet, as you can see. And not only do we see those feet almost seem to be formed wearing or garnishing some form of footwear, but they've also crushed trilobites at the time that they were standing in that sedimentary mud, which has now fossilised those footprints. Now, I got these images from a curator that goes around a lot of museums, and he has tried to put together some of these artifacts, and they, you know, as you can find out on YouTube, he is Carlos Donner, and he tried to get 300 artifacts together to do a display for people of all these strange things that they found. And he said out of the 300 artifacts of, you know, many museums around the world, only one of the artifacts was allowed to be given to him. And the reason for that is because in order for a museum to lend one of their colleagues another piece, they have to give a description of it, and they couldn't. And this is one of those pieces that Carlos Donner could only take a photo of and not actually have in his exhibit. And you know, the reason for that is, as we started this video off, is there was no explanation for how these footprints could be 250 million years old, standing in what looks like to me modern footwear and crushing troglodytes at that time. Sometimes the best scientists, the best geologists and the best geneticists just have not got answers for some of the things that turn up. Now, amongst some of the other things in Carlos Donner's exhibits was talked about was this one here, and these are jade goblets. Very, very hard material to try and cut, but nevertheless we do that even today. But this is supposed to have been 17,000 years old. If we are to believe that they only had primitive tools, I find it very hard that they would have, even with some of the most strongest materials back in that time, they would have struggled to cut jade in as perfect forms as this. It's very accurate. The measurements of the 12 little goblets that you see there, once they're filled, if they're poured into the big goblet, it perfectly fills the big goblet. And you can see that on the little goblets there is strange numbering, but we can make out what 1, 2 and 3 and 4 is. But as for the other numbers on there, it gets a little bit more difficult. So I'm not sure where these numbers originate from, but what I'm more intrigued about than anything else is you can see the two little figures of what appear to be human beings looking up at the stars. But what happens when you look at the plaque that they're standing on is also repeated on the large goblet, which is that triangle formation of dots. I will tell you exactly what they was looking at, or maybe trying to bring our attention to. First of all, I think what they're looking at, being they've got 12 goblets, small ones, is seasons of months, because there's 12 of them. This is my understanding of this. And if you look at those triangular dots, they are the star constellation, or what's commonly known as the Winter Triangle. And what those stars are actually, I'll show you in a little bit, is Betelgeuse, Procyon and Sirius. And then you'll see just below the triangle 3 little dots. That's the star constellation of Orion. And I believe that what these two figures are trying to show us is look up at that constellation for some reason. Unfortunately, it is limited but for some reason they are definitely looking at that constellation. They've also repeated it on the large goblet. Again, you can see the winter triangle, and then just below the winter triangle, the star constellation Orion. It is without a doubt that is what they're looking at. But the real unusual thing about this is not that just it is 17,000 years old, is that when you put dark light on these goblets, all those little white dots are fluorescent and glow, which, you know, is very strange, because this is 17,000 years ago and they've got phosphorescent material, or material that glows in dark light. That must be, you know, really interesting, when we are led to believe that our, you know, not so distant relatives, you know, were working with very crude tools, you know, as is explained for the production of the pyramids. You know, they worked with copper tools, yet seem to, you know, build this pyramid in a very short period of time, which defies, you know, all modern methods today. And there's other things as well that we could talk about. We could talk about so many of them, but we just don't have simply the time. But just think about this. They were lifting obelisks nearly 1,000 tons in one piece out of the quarry. Do you know how difficult that would be today for even us? But yet they did it. And we know that for a fact, because when we look at the quarry, we can see one that was about to be lifted, but it cracked and they left it there. But the estimation of the weight is over 1,000 tons. They seem to have the ability to do things we can't do today, and, you know, we are led to believe that they had no technology whatsoever. We seem to believe that we've only been on this planet as Homo sapiens for 45,000 years, yet we see footprints 250 million years old, crushing trilobites which became extinct 250 million years ago. These footprints seem to be, you know, wearing, you know, some form of footwear. Yet we were supposed to believe that cavemen, you know, walked around in barefoot. Something else I want to show you. So just so you can see those little dots that was on those goblets and on that plaque, the star constellation of the winter triangle, which is made up of the three main stars, Procyon, Betelgeuse and Sirius. And I also just ringed the other little image that was on those goblets, Orion, for you. Very important stars, and Orion was very important in the Egyptian culture. But I just want to say that according to, you know, the findings of that, what we was just looking at being 17,000 years ago, it doesn't really coincide with how old the pyramids are said to be, because I think pyramids are only supposed to be about 6,000 or 7,000 years old. The Sphinx, like somebody mentioned in the comments section the other day, is much older according to the weathering patterns or watermarks that are around the bottom. It seems that that plateau where the Sphinx sits has been around for a lot longer, because as some archaeologist was discussing, you know, these watermarks tell us an age of how old the object is, because of, you know, weathering and stuff like that, that these watermarks left on there, and how long it would take to put those watermarks on there. So we know the Sphinx is older than the pyramids, but how much older, we just don't know. Are the pyramids 6,000 to 7,000 years old, or are they much older? We just don't know. But there's another artifact I just want to show you, which, you know, some of us are going to think straight away when we look at it. Hold on a minute. Hold on a minute. How long have the Illuminati been actually on this planet? Okay, but we just don't simply know. But I will want to point out one other thing of importance about this artifact. So, as we was discussing with the formation of the pyramids, when we look at an aerial view of the plateau of where the three main pyramids are in Cairo, we can see, as we've marked out in a line, two are perfectly in alignment and the smallest one is slightly offset. This is by no mistake, this is mirroring what they saw in the sky in the constellation of Orion. So now we're looking at a star chart, and we can see the formation of the winter triangle made up of those three stars, Procyon, Betelgeuse and Sirius, and inside you can see that we've split the triangle right down the centre, and there's a good reason for this, as well as the two circles that are within inside the triangle, because those two circles track perfectly the galactic spiral arm. There's a good reason why I'm showing you this, as you'll see on the next diagram. Now in this image we're looking at the diagram of the pyramid, and we can also see inside the pyramid on the diagram, we can see where the king's chamber is, slightly off centre, and then directly below it the queen's chamber. On the star chart, if you just want to skip back just to see where those was, if you remember, I split the triangle in half. The first represents the queen's chamber and the second represents the king's chamber. Now if you look at this image, the chambers are like vaulted roofs, and they're almost like arrows pointing at something, but only when you overlay the pyramid on the star constellation like we have done can you see what the king's chamber and the queen's chamber are actually pointing to. It is the galactic centre of our spiral arm of the Milky Way galaxy. You won't hear of anyone else on YouTube or on any other social media site discussing this with you. This is something that I found out myself over the course of years, just researching some of these artifacts myself. So we're looking at another artifact that dates back 17,000 years, and you can see why you could question how long Illuminati has been going, because on the top of the pyramid what you'll see is the all-seeing eye on top of, or it could be the capstone on the pyramid. But again, this defies the age of the pyramid by at least 10,000 years, if what we're led to believe that the pyramids were built around 6,000 to 7,000 years ago. But there's one other thing I wanted to just show you about this artifact, which I'm sure you all know why it fascinates me, and I'll show you that in the next image. So when you tip the pyramid upside down and you look at the base of the pyramid face on, what you see is this image of a triangle and what seems to be a swirly line, which could be something to do with our spiral galaxy. But what is more interesting to me is, as you can see not very clearly, there is a magnet just hovered above the center of the triangle or the pyramid, and it's magnetic, yet the material of this stone doesn't resemble any magnetic material that you could make. So it's not like made of strong iron or niobium and things that we commonly make magnet out of. It's not even earth magnetic in there, yet this stone seems to attract in the center on the bottom of that pyramid artifact, magnetism. And again, the all-seeing eye on that artifact lights up in dark light. Again, this is 17,000 years. It predates the pyramid, and there is also a demonstration of technology and understanding of materials, and to some degree what we can't even achieve today. The other thing I wanted to just say about the goblet that we was looking at, it also had magnetic anomalies, and that is, it was magnetic on the inside of the cup and not on the outside of the cup. This magnetic shielding is something that we really struggle to get a grip ourselves in modern technology. So whoever built these artifacts obviously had an understanding far greater than us in this degree alone. So guys, I just wanted to leave you with this final image, which is said or supposed to be a cave painting. I'm not sure of how old that cave painting is, but you can see some very unusual imagery which you've probably never seen before on any other cave painting. I will leave that to your discretion on whether you believe that this is a real cave painting or not. I haven't got the evidence to support it. It was just when I come across it, I was led to believe that that is exactly what it was, and was many thousands of years old. Guys, we put together this video today in order to try and raise a little bit of money for our observatory, and I just wanted to mention that there is a link down there in the description if you want to help support us, because we don't just talk in general about the anomalies such as the magnetic pole reversal, volcanoes and tectonic plates and other things that are occurring in our world, and things like, you know, the coming glacial period. So, you know, there is another video tomorrow I want to do, which is if you're interested in zero point energy, how close we are to it, and some of the things that I've worked on over the last 20 years. We can discuss that tomorrow. But yeah, I'll just say what I usually do, you know, guys. Link down there in the description. Take care of your loved ones, and as always, bye for now.